Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Wanted to talk a bit today about urban prepping and the shortcomings and potential hazards of being an urban scavenger in the end of the world as we know it situation. I hear a lot of people talking about how, they're going to subsist off the scraps of the old world in the urban landscape. What they're pretty much talking about is scavenging, and the extent of their preparations seem to be making preparations beforehand, that is what they have stockpiled right now, and of course scavenging on the remnants of the old world. And they seem to think that, for one, the chance of anybody surviving in the city, and not falling victim to whatever calamity might befall us all is pretty slim in and of itself. So the notion on top of that somehow you're going to have free reign in the city to loot and scavenge all the dead people's stuff is kind of naive. This notion that all of the amenities of the city, like the machines, there's lots. I live in a farm slash an agricultural city, and there's a lot of farm equipment. There's a lot of big ass machines, like backhoes and cats and lots of heavy machinery. And there are thousands of those things, in certain lots. I've thought about, I could just get one of those when the shit hits the fan and go pick me up one of these and, maybe go down to the consolidated food source where the grocery stores are stocked and somehow just, freely fill up on goods and, make a couple stops here, make a couple stops there without any resistance whatsoever, of course, because everybody's going to die but me, the lone survivor, who's going to do the whole Will Smith, I Am Legend, Last Man on Earth thing and just go shopping. I think a person would be lucky. For one, this idea that it's going to be easier to survive in the city I just think it's totally flawed thinking. Think about how many people are going to be in the city with weapons. Think about how many places there are to hide from buildings, You could be sniped so easily from a building, and, walking through the city, you would never even know, unless you had really, really good situational awareness, and unless you really scoped the place out in advance, it'd be very hard to securely move throughout the city, whether during the day or at night, So personally, I think if you're going to stay in the city, you're going to be hunkering down for the most part. I don't think it's going to be too safe, and I would advise against. And I'm sure, when the time comes, you're going to have a better sense of what you need to do and what the risks are. But theoretically, it seems very precarious to be moving out into these urban areas, especially the core downtown type areas, even some of the big box store, suburban type parts of the cities where, you're likely to encounter people. The fact is, if you don't encounter people, that means that either, 95% of the population is dead and you're somehow the 5% that survives, which is highly unlikely, obviously. There's only a 5% chance of that. depending on your fitness and your, circumstantial stuff, where you are and things of that nature. Maybe you were lucky enough to be away on a camping trip when the shit went down or something. It's not going to be easy to just go around house to house looting, and if you do, then you're a looter, you're a marauder, and it's fair game for you to get your cap peeled, so to speak. I think there is some benefits to staying in the city. For one, you have shelter, you have roads, you have means of transportation, you have, a lot of even the plumbing might still, be useful for some period of time. But at some point, the refuse is going to add up and the cities are going to be wastelands. They're just going to be like this cancerous lump on the body of the earth. And not only that, you have fires, the risk of fires, electrical fires, and you're not going to have the emergency services in place to deal with those fires. So as much as I hope for the best for my urban prepping comrades, and I notice a lot of people, a lot of them now seem to be dabbling in more rural alternatives and more self-sustainable alternatives. And that's great. And I do think there will be for a lucky few, scavenging the remnants of the old world will be a viable option for a short period of time. I mean, there's a lot of shit in the city. There's lots of metals, there's tons of shit. There's quadrillions in salvageable infrastructure that could be recycled into things that are useful in the new world, in the post-apocalyptic new world. So don't get me wrong, I mean, if you're bold and you're wise and you perhaps have a really good group with you that's marauder oriented and looter oriented, yeah, you're going to do really well in the city, for sure. But if not, good luck, because I just don't think that it's a good idea to be bouncing around there when, especially with the gangs and the people within those regions that might lay claim to certain things. It could be wise to try to steer clear from there. You can do the gray man thing, that might be an option, cache your main stuff or try to make your home unknown. I've seen a lot of, I've seen that video, I can't remember what it's called, it's a documentary about, and they say, you want to make your house look like it's been ransacked already, throwing a bunch of stuff on your lawn to make it look like it's been looted through or something like that. I don't know, that might buy you a bit of time, I guess. But then there's always those people who are, they're going for seconds. So it wouldn't matter to them if your house is looted or not already. They'd probably still be optimistic enough to think that there might be something useful in there. Or they might have watched that same documentary and called your bluff. Who knows? It's hard to see. Gotta be careful in the city, though, man. Concrete jungle is still a jungle. It's not some safe haven where you're gonna just do whatever you want. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of clutching clutching to the system, which may never be again. May just be that the cities get grown over and perish, and because the cities require the system in place as it is now. They require the transportation, and they just might not be viable places to live anymore. They just might not be. There might be new cities erected around more geographically appropriate sites. And that's not to say that the rural doesn't have its share of complications. I think in the short term the city would be useful. However, we're all going to have to make that decision as to whether or not we bug out before bugging out is no longer an option, or before too many people decide the same thing. So it's going to be a bit of a gamble. And in the long term, I think rural will be the only option. There's lots of basements in the city which may provide some place of refuge, particularly in the winter time when the temperature below the earth is relatively consistent. So it could be a home base. Then again, traveling in and out of an urban center is not easy, and you're probably be easily identified if you're traveling on the main roads. So, something to consider. Let me know what you think, or what your disposition is, whether it's urban or rural, and why you think those are better options, and what are the pros and cons of each. And of course, every urban situation is going to be different. Manhattan Island is going to be a lot different than, my city, which is 250,000 people and quite spread out. A city nonetheless, but not one with 10 million people. So, I suppose we can't speak too broadly and too absolutely when we're talking about urban and rural. There are various grades, both. So let me know what you think about this, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the video, and if not, that's okay too. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.